let's talk some sportsbook outrights, some top 10 numbers, some top 20 numbers that are kind of catching our eye early on in the week, Monday night, as we sit here today. I think we talked about the golf course. We talked about TPC Boston, what it has produced in years past. It has produced primarily your short to mid odds winners. Other than Bryson, who won at 100 to 1 in 2018, it's been basically your 40, 50 to 1 or shorter, with Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy winning. You even got Ricky in 2015, who at that time was probably a shorter number. So you do tend to see the cream rise to the top, which your boy DB hates weeks like this. It could not be more opposite than last week at the Wyndham, where we knew literally anyone in the field could have won, even 500 to 1 gastroenterologist Dr. Jim Herman. This week it is not likely. So it pains me, but I'm going to have to stay a little more disciplined this week with my picks, but I still have some triple digit numbers that I like right now. So let's start with the shorter numbers. And where are you looking to start kind of building an outright card for the Northern Trust?
Well, for me, I'm going to start with a guy we didn't mention at all on the show so far, and that is DJ at 22 to 1. I mean, I think you're getting a guy, obviously a bomber. His history here has kind of been, from what I remember, well, actually, it's not bad. You look at the last 3 years.
DJ's got a good record here.
Yeah, he's finished in the top 20 with a T8 in 2016. T7 in 2018. So I think at 22 to 1, that's a really good number for DJ. So I like that. I mentioned earlier in the show that Colin Morikawa at 25 to 1, I think is still a good number. I like Jason Day at 26 to 1. I think he's another guy that can win here and has a great record here. Cantlay, you don't like, but I still like that number at 35 to 1. I think that's good. And if we're in the mid range, I still like Hovland at 55 to 1. I think that's a good number. There's a lot of guys, actually. I could literally go through a ton that I think that in the mid to short end range that we have some really good betting odds on. But those are the first ones that I wrote down as ones that I will be playing.
I definitely like Jason Day at 26. That's as short as I'm going to go. And even that just makes me kind of, feel weird. But you can't argue with what Jason Day's doing right now. And 26, I think, is going to be shorter come like Tuesday afternoon. I think that's going to be bet down considering his form. His record here is good, and the course fit. 26 to 1 is an attractive number. I mean, that's a good number. Then I'm going to hop all the way back, though, to your 55. You mentioned Hovland. I like Scheffler instead. I just think from what we saw Scheffler do at the PGA, who, by the way, I mentioned this about Finau when we were talking about the DFS section, looked like he was ready to win on Sunday and kind of just looked different. Scheffler had that look in his eye, too. He just didn't.
He really did.
He just didn't pull it out, but he did not seem fazed whatsoever by the field, by the stage, by what was happening. And the guy's a gamer. He hits it a long way, and 55 to 1 is an interesting number when we're seeing guys like Morikawa come out, rookies on tour, come out and do what they're doing. Wolfe, doing what he's doing. I like that number, and I prefer it over Hovland if I'm going to pick one in this range, just for the very recent form in a big field, a big event. Scheffler's a little longer than Victor. That would be why I would pick him over Hovland. Then we're crazy not to bet Matt Wolfe at 70 to 1 on currently it's 70 to 1 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, in the other trusted sportsbook that we talk about weekly, that we feel like has the most accurate golf lines out there, doesn't necessarily mean you want to bet them. Matt Wolfe is at 50 to 1. 50 to 1. He's at 70 to 1 on DK Sportsbook. So I've already put my bet down on Matt Wolfe. I can tell you right now, He's already on the card at 70-1 because I think that number is going to get shorter. We talked about length being such an advantage here. He's playing so well. Tough to avoid that one. Now, a guy that you mentioned in the DFS section that we never get right, and neither one of us are playing in DFS. Neither one of us ever play him in DFS. But why not throw a little half unit on Sung J M Siwoo Kim, not Sung J M. Siwoo Kim.
Yeah, I think you're right on Kim. Yeah.
At 100-1. He's 100-1. He battled back after that early double bogey on Sunday at the Wyndham. Could have won the Wyndham. And he's 100-1 in a field of 125. Like, I don't know. Like, he's a bomber. Siwoo hits it a long way. He's aggressive. We saw that a little too aggressive at the Wyndham. But you got wide open fairways here. He can rip it. He's 82nd in the FedEx Cup. So he's got to have a good week to get to the top 70 and play the BMW next week. I think 100-1 is too attractive to pass up on Siwoo. And then just behind him at 110-1, I'm going to go with another bomber, probably the longest guy on tour. And Bryson would hate to hear this, but 110-1, Cam Champ. Actually, he's already been bet down. So he was 110-1 this afternoon. He's now 100-1 on DraftKings. That's still a good number. 100-1 on DraftKings. Love Cam Champ. We saw him at the PGA. Could have won it on Sunday at the PGA. He's 90-1 on that trusted sports book that I mentioned earlier. So he's still a value despite already getting shorter from the afternoon. And then finally, my last one, I'm going to go deep. But if you're going to go this deep, you go with a guy who's played here a ton of times, who's got a ton of experience, and that is Phil Mickelson at 140-1. Phil's flashed a little form, almost won the FedEx St. Jude 3 weeks ago. He's a bomber, aggressive. These wide open fairways will be nice for him. Can obviously putt really well on bent grass. 140-1 is worth a little sprinkle, little quarter unit, little half unit, whatever you want to do on Phil. Also 67th in the FedEx Cup, so just inside the number for next week to make it to the BMW. So I'll go Phil. You got any top 10s or top 20s?
Well, I have other bets in this, outrights.
Oh, I thought you were done.
No, I just gave you the top end. I stopped at Hovland.
Well,
but I had
give them all
more.
to me.
Yeah, so I mentioned Noren as a guy in the DFS portion I liked. I like him at 100-1. I like Ben On at 110-1. I think that's a good number for him. I'm surprised you didn't mention our boy Joel Damon at 175-1. I still think, even though he missed the cut last time he played here, I still think this is a good course that he can play well on, and we've seen him play well all year. And I just can't not bet him at least a little bit. And obviously played well at the PGA Championship, so I like him. And another guy at 175-1 who's had pretty good success here and good, decent course history and has been playing well, and that's Ryan Palmer at 175-1. Oh. He would kill me to play him in DFS, but if I could put him at like a few units on him to win at 175-1, we've seen
a few units. You know,
like a
quarter unit or something,
like a quarter.
Yeah,
at 175-1, I don't mind that as well. As far as top 10s and top 20s. Didn't mention him on the show, but I like Hadwin as a top 10 at 11-1. Obviously a great putter, putts well on bent. I think he is a decent play. I like Mickelson. I like him outright, but I don't mind the top 10 at 11-1 as well. I think that's something to look at. I don't really have any top 20s, but those are really the only two top 10s that I had.
Okay, I got a couple players I like both in top 10 and top 20. I like Max Homa, who we haven't talked about one time, but I like Max. He's 57th in the FedEx Cup right now. Got a chance to go as deep as he's ever gone in the FedEx Cup playoffs. 57th, just kind of inside that 70, a little more comfy than some other players, but still needs to have a good week. He is 20-1 for a top 10. This is a guy who's won a big event at Quail Hollow, who's played well in big time events before, just needs to put four together. I think 20-1 is a sizable top 10 number for Max Homa. He's 8-1 in the top 20 range. I think that's really solid.
I don't mind that at all. Yeah.
And then I'm going to go these two guys, same odds, both Taylor Gooch, who I mentioned in the DFS portion, and Joel Damon, who you just mentioned. I didn't have him outright, but just because to win is going to be tough on this course for Joel. But I do want a little bit of exposure to him. I mean, he's been playing so solid. I think a top 10, top 20 bet for both Gooch and Joel. Top 10, they're both 14-1. That's pretty strong. And top 20, they're both 6.5-1. So Gooch and Damon, there. I do have one more top 10 bet, and it's a player we have not looked at one time. But when I look at the top 10 numbers, I scroll all the way to the bottom, and I start at the longest odds.
That's what I do
F
too.
that 5-1. So I'm not doing that. Listen,
I agree. I'm not doing any of that.
Listen, I know that the smartest bettors, golf bettors, are going to be way more responsible with the numbers they play. That is not what we are here to give you. We are here to appeal to the less responsible, slightly more cowboy part of you that wants to go a little bigger. Or maybe we are the ones that kind of round out your card. Maybe you listen to somebody else who is really good at those shorter numbers, and they get more wins more frequently, and they build their bankroll. But you want a little bit of a sprinkle with some of those longer, so you come to us for that. Okay, that's what we're here for. I scroll all the way to the bottom of the top 10, and I start going. Give me the biggest number at a name that makes me go ooh, And one more top 10 that made me go ooh was Tom Lewis at 16-1. Top 10, the Euro Tom Lewis, who hits it a long way, has flashed some pretty solid form here of late. Definitely disappointed me at the PGA, but before that was playing rather nicely. 16-1 as a top 10 is attractive for old Tom, not Morris, Lewis.